Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is a video series 2, part 10. In part 4 of video series 1, I have shared with you some highlights of the new explanation on the creation of the human beings and its early evolution. In this part, I would like to share with you more details. In most of the studies on the human history, people are used to look back from their current positions. They looked at the human history from the point of view of the existing morals of the modern society. The existing theories about the animal world and the evolution of the human society make us feel our superiority. That was what Plato, Aristotle, and many others did. That is wrong, because it creates only illusions for us. We should look at the history from the history. In my book, I started with the creation of the universe and looked in a consistent way at creation of the materials, the solar system, the earth, the origin of life, the evolution of animals, the creation of the human being, the early evolution of the human being, and finally the formation of the human society. This approach is challenging, but it gave me a total new view on the history of the mankind and the history of the human society. I wrote a big chapter on the creation of the human being. I'm fully convinced that it is the strong individualism that created mankind and makes mankind different from all the other animals. The ancestors of the modern mankind had a unique combination of strong will of individual happiness and weak will of group efficiency. At the creation, the four original wills of the mankind are reasonably balanced, but its individualism is still stronger than the individualism of the other animals. As I explained earlier, the four original wills of the mankind is carried and preserved in DNA. What are also unique of the mankind is that the human society has created a strong virtual individualism to replace or suppress the original individualism of the mankind. This is related to the higher learning capability of the mankind. The creation of the human being has taken roughly 20 million years. For the human being, it was a long period, but it's a short period in the animal world. Many new species in this period were created. In the end, Homo Sapiens emerged as the modern human being. Archaeologists, biologists, anthropologists are still working hard to find more evidence on the creation of the human being. In my book, I made a simple philosophical model for the creation of the human being, and I verified them with available evidence. The model is simple. First, the ancestors of the mankind had a unique combination of a strong will of individual happiness and a weak will of group efficiency. Second, a relatively strong will of group disaster of the nature was released. When this happened, the will of group disaster of our ancestors was magnified. A larger proportion of the will of group disaster of our ancestors was converted into their will of individual happiness and individual efficiency. The strong will of individual efficiency of our ancestors led to the creation of the mankind. In short, mankind was created from its highly individual ancestors in some proper natural disasters. The Middle Awas region in Ethiopia is the most important archaeological site for the creation of the mankind. There were also other animals in this region. People wondered why we didn't find some sites with many human remains in this region. This is actually a strong evidence that our ancestors were not group-oriented with a fixed living place. This region was for a long time the site of a periodical volcanic eruption. It created the condition for the faster evolution of animals with strong individualism. It is believed that around 5.6 million years ago till 2.5 million years ago, this region was wet. This provided a good condition for the survival of the oldest human being. It is also believed that the separation of oldest humans and chimpanzees took place about 6 million years ago. As you can see from the drawing on the bottom, the archaeological findings suggest that the evolution of the human line generated much more diversity than that from the gorilla line. It is a reflection of the strong will of individual efficiency of the human line. Even today, if we could exclude the impact of the social wills of the human society, chimpanzee is still more group-oriented than the human being. There are still a lot of questions on the details on when and how the human being went out of Africa and conquered the world. There's a consensus on a major subject. The consensus supports the new theory on the early evolution of the human being. In general, after its creation, a fraction of the mankind was driven by its strong will of individual happiness to take adventures. There are two major explorations of the mankind out of Africa. The first one was between 120,000 years and 60,000 years ago by the Homo Erectus. The Homo Erectus reached Europe, Asia, and even Australia. Unfortunately, the Homo Erectus lost their strong individualism soon. Their group interaction becomes strong. They formed strong groups and lived together, for instance, in cavities. This is why archaeologists found many sites with many human remains of Homo erectus in it. Homo sapiens went out of Africa between 60,000 years and 30,000 years ago. They maintained their strong individualism. They reached every corner of the world. They formed loose groups and preferred living along with small family. It made them also easy to take new adventures. They conquered the world in the end. It is therefore more difficulty to find the archaeological sites with many remains of Homo sapiens in it. Some anthropologists wondered why there is a big gap between the time period with rich archaeological findings of the mankind and the modern human society. This slide gives the answer. The strong individualism of Homo sapiens made them as the modern human being. I guess I'm one of the many people who wondered why did the human being went out of Africa and why did they dare to follow some very difficult route. My conclusion in my book is that it is the four original wills of the human being with strong individualism that drives the mankind for adventures. It shows also that the mankind has no purpose. The mankind overcome unbelievable harsh conditions and difficulties and reached everywhere on earth in a short time period. I quote what the mankind demonstrated in its migration journey as the spirit of the man. I must say we are losing the spirit of the man nowadays. The modern human society started about 6,000 years ago. Four social wills are created by the human society to increase the social efficiency and the social stability. The human society is clearly with purpose. In the four social wills of the human society, the social will of group efficiency is the leading of the four social wills. The original individualism of the mankind is replaced by the virtual individualism. The social will has resulted in fast progress in technology and in productivity and the creation of material wealth and comfort. Unfortunately, the usage of social wealth nowadays is excessive. It makes people less happy. It stopped the natural evolution of the mankind. It is pushing the mankind to extinction. It is also reducing the diversity of the living beings on Earth. I should point out that many people nowadays believe in technology, but technology will not save the mankind from its extinction, because technology is also driven by the social wills of the human society. Let me first explain why the social wills is pushing the mankind to its extinction. As we could see from the previous part, the four wills of a living species have a great impact on the reproduction process of the living species, and consequently the fate of the living species. In my book, I compared bacteria, pterosaur, dinosaur, and human being in terms of governing will in the reproduction process, the will of group disaster with environment, and the lifetime sense its creation. First, an interesting comparison between pterosaur and a dinosaur. In the first 20 million years of their existence, their reproduction processes was reasonably balanced. New species were created and old ones died out. In the next 90 million years, the reproduction process of pterosaur was driven mainly by its will of individual efficiency. Pterosaur evolved into a huge family of birds. The reproduction process of dinosaur was mainly driven by its will of group efficiency. Dinosaur was become stronger and heavy. Its number kept increasing. It was demanding more and more from the nature. Its will of group disaster with the environment kept increasing. Dinosaurs disappeared during a huge asteroid impact of 65 million years ago. The creation of the human being took about 20 million years in total. About 6,000 years ago, the civilization was started. People wanted more and more. The social will was becoming a driving force for the reproduction process of the human being. Families, societies want more and more manpower. The population grew exponentially. The nature is being destroyed. In some sense, the human society created a huge risk of extinction for the mankind in only 6,000 years. The dinosaur did that over 80 million years. This is the worst conclusion I got during my research. If the problem in the previous slides was not serious enough for you, some biologists create a new one for you. I would like to repeat the 2 slides in part 4 of video series 1. This first slide shows the function of the human DNA. In short, the human DNA keeps the mankind as the mankind, because the human DNA is the carrier of many things. For instance, the 4 original wills of the mankind and of each human being, the continuation of the time clock of the living being in each human being, the original comprehending capability of each human being, the basic characteristics of each human being, the vitality, energy, love, and creativity of each human being. Up to now, the mankind is very lucky because the change of human DNA can only take place during a human reproduction process. The speed of the impact of the human society on the mankind itself is relatively low. Some biologists now want to manipulate the human DNA to prevent diseases or even extend lifetime. The question is, do they really understand what does the human DNA really mean for the mankind? No, nobody. Now you want to speed up the change in the reproduction process of the human being, and you don't understand. I would expect that the genetic manipulation of human DNA would reduce the intrinsic individualism and increase the intrinsic group interaction of the mankind. It might downgrade the mankind to low-end animals such as ants and fishes. It would impact very, very negatively the evolution of the mankind. The genetic manipulation of the human DNA is the most serious crime against the mankind in history. It should be absolutely prohibited. The social wills of the human society is destroying not only ourselves, but also the whole world of the living beings on the earth. During my research, I found out that diversity is the best quality indicator of the evolution of our existence in the universe. The diversity of the universe as a whole is poor and in decline. This is because of the very weak will of individual efficiency and the strong will of group efficiency of the universe. Very likely, the living beings enhance substantially the local diversity in place in the universe. On the other hand, the social wills of the human society is reducing the diversity of the mankind and the living beings on Earth. You see the three trends in the drawing. The trend that is driven by the social wills of the human society is the same as that being driven by the wills of the universe. I don't know whether it is a coincidence. I guess we don't want it. We don't want to push ourselves to death. The question is then, what should we do? Answering this question kept me busy for a long time. I did what I could do. I proposed a new set of morals in the book, The Principles of the Universe. I wrote the book, The Philosophical Foundation of the States. I will share with you some highlights of the book, The Philosophical Foundation of the States in Video Series 3. With this remark, I would like to close part 10 of Video Series 2. This is also the end of Video Series 2. Thank you for your attention.